So, I'm a bit late to this, but Sword Art Online Volume 27, Unital Ring 6, I believe. This is Unital Ring 6. Um, Came out in English translation at the end of August, but I'm late. I didn't get my book till about a week ago. 2 weeks ago, actually, I think. And it took me about a week to read it. I read at my own pace. I usually try to do like 2 to 3 chapters a day just so I don't get overblown with it all. And it spaces it out so I have time to, be like, oh, I'm reading the book for a length of time. I only took like a week and a bit to finish this book. And it's time for the review, as I always do. As I always do. It's time for that Unital Ring review. So, pick it up. Let's pick up. There's 2 stories in this issue. One set in the Underworld, one set in Unital Ring, like last time. Except it's done a bit better, I would say, chapter-wise this time. Because last time, a big criticism was we would go have one chapter at Underworld, and then immediately the next chapter is Unital Ring. One chapter Underworld, Unital Ring, Underworld, Unital Ring. Like, they kept going back and forth. And they weren't that long chapters, so as you're, like, getting into, like, the Underworld bit, for example, you're like, oh, okay, this is intriguing. It's cut off and we're back to Unital Ring. And then you start getting into that, and then we're cut off and we're back to Underworld. So, it's done better this time. Chapters are longer, which is a good and bad thing. No one likes a super long chapter ahead of them. That's going to be like, oh, God, really? We got to go... We have that big a chapter, it's a bit of a daunting task, seeing a big chapter ahead of you. But it does allow some of the stories to breathe more. So, we pick up right where we left off. Tisei, Ronie, Selka, they have been brought back. They see Eoline, whatever. And of course they think, oh my god, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! And then they come and tell them, no, that's not Yu-Gi-Oh! All that stuff. Ronie and Selka kind of accept it a bit more, but Tisei takes a bit more, she's a bit more hung on to it. We then have, of course she tells them who Eoline is, that he's Broccoli's, he's the descendant of Broccoli's son, Birchie, who of course they would know because they were there when Fernando gave birth, Moon Cradle, all that stuff. Of course, Eoline is the adopted son of the current head of the Broccoli. Well, it's her lens, but we'll say Broccoli family, right? So Kirito, Austin, and Alice, they quickly try to bring them up to speed on everything that's going on, but they, of course, are running out of time. Rinko gave them a specific time. If you are not out by this time, I will log you out myself. So, boom, they are ejected. Kirito and Asa wake up, back in Roppongi. Alice is still there. She's still diving. So Rinko tells them she left Alice in because she suspected if they didn't get out on their own, that obviously they were in the middle of something important. So I'll leave Alice there. Because she can. Alice can stay for as long as she wants, really. And she's like, I'll leave Alice there, so at least there's still one person there. Which, makes sense, right? So they meet up with Kikuoka. He's there, and he's going to drive them home. Isn't that nice? Asuna asks Rinko, what's the situation, Kikuoka? Because, he faked his death and all that. How can he just walk around? And she's like, oh, yeah, they made a fake twin for him to become. So he's now pretending to be a twin. Huh. So while driving the two home, he gives them a box. And inside the box is a little robot cat. He says that Wrath is going to make these robots, and they're going to go sell them so that way they can have some income to keep the ocean turtle afloat. Some actual genuine income to keep the ocean turtle afloat. Right? There is some problems with the cat, though, like the AI, it keeps, seeing humans walk on 2 feet, and then the cats start walking on 2 feet, so he's like, so we got a few kinks to work at still. So we ask Kirito and Asuna the next dive if they can find an actual underworld cat, and they will copy that cat and put it into Alice's light cube storage, and then they will take that out and put that in the next model, so that way it will actually kind of be a cat. Um, so they agree, right? He then asks Asuna if she wants to keep the cat. So Asuna is, of course, like, oh my god, yes. Kirito suspects that this is for two reasons. One, maybe it's a late birthday present for Asuna. And two, her brother works at Wrecked Progress, and her father's the former CEO of Wrecked Progress. So if they see this, they'll be interested, maybe bring it up to Wrecked, and then Wrecked can take over with the distribution and all that. It's a pretty savvy business move if you think about it. So they drop Asuna off, and Kirito kind of brings Kikoko up on everything that happened last volume about, maybe Istar could be the intruder into the underworld, because that's why he sent them in, of course, last time. He wanted them to find out who is the intruder in underworld. We didn't quite figure that out, but Kirito suspects maybe Istar, and he kind of tells Kikoko all this. Then we move on to Asuna. She logs into Unital Ring and finds there's a big watchtower kind of made, right? So she kind of like, that's not there before. She climbs it, and she can see from the tower, bunch of new people here. What happened? She meets up with Liz, and Liz kind of gives her what happened last book, where, they beat the Hornet boss with the patter and all that, and the Insectite players, and she tells them that news spread about that, and some ALO players have moved here thinking, oh, we got a better chance, especially also because word has spread that Kirito is leading this, and every ALO player knows about Kirito. So they're like, oh, wow, this is Kirito's place? Oh, shoot, we got a chance, She tells them that they also notices that their wooden gate has kind of been removed. And this tells them, people were banging on it, so we just got rid of it and put a wall there. So Asuna they check the durability of the wall, and they see that it's actually been given a buff. In fact, many things have been given a buff, and this is from Asuna and Kirito's cabin. Because the cabin, they've been building around the cabin has been leveling up as more things have been built around it. And it's applied like all these buffs to the buildings. So they realize, okay, the cabin's kind of the lifeline of this town. If anything bad happens to the cabin, the town is screwed. So Asuna's kind of like, maybe we buff up the cabin a bit more. Kirito logs on, and Liz starts showing Asuna and Kirito around town, showing them new tents that the players have made and all that stuff. And she said, there might be a future problem of new players saying we kick the NPCs out to give more space. And Kirito's like, yeah, it will be a problem. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Then we move back to Underworld. We have the four girls, Alice, Selka, Tisei, Roni, and they have a nice bath. Well, we have a lot of baths here in Underworld. Alice kind of asked Selka, why'd you go into deep freeze? And Selka said, well, one of the reasons was she wanted to see her sister again, and she didn't want to look old and decrepit when she met Alice again. So, okay. That's nice. So the four of them head up to the lookout place for dinner. Eoline is there, and he's kind of fixing the Zerfang. Eventually Eoline, Stisa, and Laura leave. So then it's just the knights, Alice, and Selka. So then we go back to Unital Ring. The Underworld bit is Alice, and then the Unital Ring part is a mix. It's that bit of Asuna, and then it's back to Kirito. So Kirito is the main bit for Unital Ring, with a bit of Asuna, and then Underworld is firmly Alice. So Liz escorts Kirito and Asuna to a dungeon that opened up after they killed the Hornet boss. They realized that the Hornet boss was the boss that is the guard of the dungeon that leads to the next tier of Unital Ring. And so far it hasn't respawned, but it could always. But Kirito says if it's like the floor bosses from SAO, it won't. So there is some good news there. So they start going up this, they describe it as like a stairway dungeon kind of thing. And they hear some fighting. They go and they see the clearing group is up ahead. The clearing group is Selka, Klein, Agil, like the scene on the Yui, the main team. And they're fighting a big golem. So this golem is the final boss. There's two bosses you have to beat, it looks like, to get to the next tier of Unital Ring. One, which is a boss guarding the dungeon and one which is at the end of the dungeon. So the Hornet boss was the one guarding it. This Golem boss is the one that's right at the end. So you beat this boss, you go on to the next tier of Unital Ring. So Kirito sees the Golem and he's like, well, maybe it's like the floor 5 boss from SAO, and it's got a weak point that you have to hit, right? Because they've been doing that, they've been hitting it, and it's done little to no damage. So he's like, well, maybe it's like the floor 5 boss. It has one weak point that you have to hit, you know? So Kirito spots these pots on the wall, and some of them are lit up, you know, to give you some light, while others aren't. So he comes up with an idea. He tells Sinon, I need you to hit all the pots that aren't lit. So she does that. The oil from the pots kind of goes onto the ground. He kind of tricks the Golem into like, hey, look at me. And then the Golem falls into the oil, slips and falls. And it reveals that it does have a weak point on its foot. So, because the Golem keeps slipping on the oil, they're able to attack its weak point, and they eventually kill it. Now, Yui used a bow during this fight and not a sword, and she says to her parents that she finds it easier to calculate how to shoot with a bow than a sword. So we don't know really what Yui's weapon will be. Is she going to be a swordswoman like her parents, or is she going to go with a bow? Who knows? Moving back to Underworld, Eri takes Alice, Selka, Roni, and Tise to a room where it's the same room where those heads used to be. Like, you know, like the white heads that would pop up and kind of say, like, you know, the law has been broken and, you know, sending Integrity Night, all that shit. Those heads, they're gone now, obviously, and that room has been kind of repurposed to be the home of the dragons. These are frozen dragons that all belong to Integrity Knights. So that's where the dragons go. She takes them to the room where Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh fought, where all the frozen Integrity Knights are. So that is and we get to we know that some knights are there, like Fenatio, Dusselbert, and Renly are the 3 specifically that they mention. And Tise kind of has a nice moment with Renly there. It is revealed why Tise and Ronier went into deep freeze, which was Renly is frozen. His age is frozen. So Tise kept getting older. So Ronier begged Star King Kirito, please can you freeze our age? Freeze Tise's age so she can be with Renly. I'll go out of solidarity with my best friend. And we said Selka, she had multiple reasons. One of them was she wanted to look young when Alice met her, but also because, you know, she's a friend. So she was doing it with solidarity. Moving back to Unital Ring. If I could find my notes here. Argo and Friskel, who's the Lugru corridor guy that they for some reason brought back, kind of tell the group that the second tier of Unital Ring is split into 4 sections. 1 grassland, 1 snowy, and 2 forest. While they're walking, they come across a river, and they're like, okay, Asuna's pet, Aga, the like platypus thing, will take one person across the water. Yui volunteers, and Asuna's like, hell no. But Kirito's like, no, just let it happen. So Asuna ties a rope around Yui, just in case anything happens. They go across, no problem, unties the rope, and a monkey man hops up and takes away Yui. Oh my god. So Kirito and Asuna get on their pets and they chase after it. They eventually hop off the pets because they're like, well, they're going the same pace as the monkey. With being on their pets, if they get off the pets, maybe the pets can kind of go forward and get the monkey, which it does. But the monkey man, he kind of... It is at this point that they realize that the monkey is not an NPC. It is a player from Apocalypse. And it gets some reinforcements. The reinforcements were, let me see here, a tiger, a fox, and a raccoon. So the reason they kidnapped Yui was because they heard, members of their group were captured by some NPCs, and, you know, they can't communicate with them. But they heard about Yui being able to, so they hope to use her, kind of use her as leverage, kind of thing. Kirito and Asuna obviously aren't too happy about that, as many parents probably wouldn't be that you'd kidnap their child. So moving back to Underworld. Aerie tells Alice that the decision on whether or not that to unfreeze the Knights belongs with her. Alice asks if it's okay to unfreeze them because, you know, they must be, like, their souls could be damaged. Baselka says that Kirito made this memory compression spell that kind of frees space in their mind. So they'll be fine. Aerie reveals that there's some Knights that are missing, that aren't accounted for, and those are the ones that Administrator had placed under deep freeze, and they don't even if they found them, they don't know if they could unfreeze them because Administrator's spell is different to their new one. We also learned that Sheita is in the dark territory because she married Ishkan, so that's nice. That's a nice little thing. Ronin and TCA kind of make their case that the Knights should be brought back, especially with this new threat, because the Underworlders can't fight whatever the governing authority in the world is, which at this point is the Human Unification Council or the Stellar Council, whatever, because of the seal, right? However, the Knights, only authority that they recognize is Kirito and Asuna. So they can fight back. So Alice is like, alright, let's awaken these Knights. So just as they're preparing to unfreeze the Knights, the Central Cathedral is attacked! Oh my god! They are specifically targeting the floor they are on. So a hologram appears from one of the planes, and it's a man called Agumar Westerath the Sixth, and he claims to be the rightful ruler of the human realm, the human empire. This is a Moon Cradle thing, by the way. He's a descendant of a Western emperor, pretty much. So going back to Unital Ring for a bit, Kirito lets those Apocalypse Date players go, and he and Asuna head back to their friends and kind of discuss what they'll do. The friends are obviously like, hell no, they kidnapped Yui, we're not going to help them. But Kirito and Asuna do want to help because the main reason is because the NPCs that attacked the Apocalypse Date players were Dark Elves. And they're wondering maybe they could see Kismel again. Kismel is a character from Progressive, she was a Dark Elf, part of a storyline. And they kind of allude that something happened to her. We don't know. Obviously, we're not at that point in Progressive. So Reki is kind of hinting maybe she dies, maybe something else happens. Who knows? But Kirito and Asuna want to see her again. So everyone decides, let's log out for a bathroom break. They do that. Kirito gets a call from Alice on his phone who tells him, get to the Underworld now, buddy. Back in the Underworld, Alice uses Aerie's platform, like her little elevator platform thing, to fly up to the Dragon Craft, and she tells Agumar, get the hell on out of here, buddy. Get to stepping. But he refuses and he fires some missiles at her. She quickly dispatches them. He sends more, and it's like, well, that's way too much for me. But Kirito shows up. It's kind of like when he saved her from Gabriel. And then a big beam of light hits the Dragon Craft, and it's revealed to be Fanatio. She's unfrozen. We head over to the pilot's base where Laura and Stisa are. They are being attacked by these minions. And they are saved by Tisei and Ronier, who went over to help them. It seems the reason for the attack was to kidnap Eoline. A man named Koga arrives and tries to grab Eoline. But Kirito shows up to make the save. And that's where we end the book. That's where we end off Unital Ring 6. No more Unital Ring until next year, probably, because we seem to be getting one book a year. So, overall, I thought it was a fine book. You know, nothing... I loved the Underworld stuff, and the Unital Ring stuff wasn't bad as well. We are now on the second tier. Will this take forever to get to the end? Probably. We are going at a snail's pace, so I would like Reki to kind of rush this up a bit. And because at the rate we're going, Unital Ring's going to be like Alice's Asian, which is going to have like 50 books. And I'd like it to be a lot shorter. And I'd like for Unital Ring to focus more on Unital Ring a bit more. And I want to know what's going on with Unital Ring. Why have the games merged? What's the the thing at the center of Unital Ring that's revealed by the heavenly light. I want to know this. But the rate we're going, we're not going to find out for quite some time. Again, in Underworld, it's always interesting to see what's going on because there's the intrigue of Eola, and there's the intrigue of the Integrity Knights, Star King, all that stuff, seeing these characters after so long, and that too. But I would prefer if Reki, for next book, stayed to one, and like he picked one storyline to follow next time. That's what I would prefer. But anyway, I'm going to give this book the same rating I pretty much give all the books, an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a fine read. I enjoyed myself. I was never really bored throughout all of it. There is some exposition that I'm like, yeah, I know this, I can skip it. But overall, I really enjoyed myself reading this book. So yeah, that is what I think. I think it's a solid read. If you're a big Sword Art fan, and you want to keep seeing what's going on, the anime's on a break, highly recommend picking up the books. They are, these Unital Ring books, they're worth it, really. So, that's where I'm going to end it. If you guys have read the book, let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. If you haven't, again, I recommend go pick it up. So, that's going to do it, and I will see you all next time.